How's it going, everyone? Oh yeah, let's tackle on a doozy. I haven't made a video in a while because, like I said, it's just kind of gets into rinse and repeat. It's practically the theory, but then expanding even further with little notes, nuances, and events. But an idea kind of flashed, giving like a piece of possible puzzle when it comes to some of the hard things that we're dealing with. One of the big things that's being spoken about is depression, and at this point, you can use all these theories to take that shit out. But it's putting this in much more of a cohesive base or kind of like a format to do so. So, in a way, let's tackle it on. And if you happen to have depression, see this as one method or a set of method that you can add on top of others in order to deal with what you're currently going on. But it does need a bit of a base that we're going to go on right now. So, when it comes to depression itself, there's a lot of talk about the chemical aspect of it, yet there's not a lot of talk about the actual inner thought aspect of it. Because a lot of times, especially when it comes to doctors, they'll say it's a chemical imbalance and they'll slap you on with the pills. And where that kind of can be a solution, yet the most common problems are the side effects, which are actual effects. So that terminology is kind of awkward. But also at the same time, if you just take a pill, you'll continuously just ingest it or ingest that kind of material to fix your issue. While if your issue is actually something to do with your thought stream and your lack of mindfulness to a certain degree, then it's like you're taking, like a, let's say, video game example. It's like you're continuously taking an item boost or a specific armor, and you're not necessarily developing the skill which will get you the stat point or the ability permanently. You'll constantly go back to, let's say, wearing that one piece of armor for that skill or continuously ingesting an item to get that skill, but you won't actually have trained yourself to get it, to actually have it as a solid skill that you've trained, that you've built experience, that you've built awareness of that specific skills, and started the continuously growing process, the continual growth. Because every time you practice something, you grow out of it. You grow you grow skills in it. So if you're not even tackling that on and you're just going to continuously go with the pills, then you're kind of stuck in a side effect loop. Well, side effect, that's a joke. It's an effect. Whatever effect those pills bring you, you'll be looping those effects with the idea that you need those pills to cure your depression, while you could get the skills, the mindfulness skills, to just take hold of what's going on in your mind, become much more aware of it, and then clear it, no longer needing the side effects slash effects from the continual repetition of ingesting those pills. And that's what we're going to get into. The aspect of mindfulness. What is mindfulness? How aware are you of your five senses, and how aware are you of your internal world? Your internal world being your thoughts, your perception, how you perceive things, how you internalize things. What's your emotional reaction or emotional responses? All that is part of your internal world. And to the degree that you know it and are aware of it, meaning you're able to spot when one reaction happened, how often has it happened, and why. Why being the biggest question you could ask yourself. Shout out to Simon Sinek for the why. But again, there's multiple people who spoke about the power of why. Yet your why upon an emotional reaction or response is the most important thing to care for. So if you haven't built awareness of your internal world, if you haven't built mindfulness, then oftentimes you're kind of going through the day reacting, not responding, reacting to things happening around. You go on Facebook, something really nasty has been posted, boom, you react. Someone else's picture seems to show them having a good life, and you feel kind of bad or you feel a bit jealous. Reaction, and if you are aware, the more aware you are, of those reaction. Like one example and one little trick that you can do just to play. Don't make it a I need to do it. The crucial part, because the whole need aspect of it or you should do it, that whole language is from a prior generation, but a prior method of perceiving things, which had looped similar problems up until it got too critical. Meaning, if you say it needs to be done, or you need to do these techniques, or you need to take care of it, or else you're XYZ, whatever, finish the phrase, you're not helping yourself at all. You're putting a pressure. And if you're mindful about that pressure that you're putting yourself and the internal dialogue that it rolls, you're literally not feeling well. Putting those should or else. It's bullshit. It's crap. So when it comes to these practices, just play with them, adjust them to your preferences and balances. If you like to do it a different way, or if you feel you want to do it a different way, do it. You know why? Because this is your take on, you're taking on this issue of depression. This is you yourself taking on that, let's say, the inner world turmoil that you have going on. So I'm here to give you tools, but you can modify them to your desires and will, to what works with you. Hell, you could even, I'll try to bring a bunch of suggestions in the end, but feel free to completely modify those to your will. The key point is understanding the concept of it logically as well as emotionally. So that one of the key things that you could do is while you're listening to this, and I always tell people, close your eyes and visualize yourself doing the exercises as I'm saying it, so that you picture yourself and you see a movie of yourself doing the exercise as you're listening to these. And you're going to be able to get a bit more of a sense of the logical process as well as the emotional process, and you'll find out how you'll customize it on your own. But one of those techniques is basically going throughout the day and then writing out what you've reacted to. I was going to say respond, but respond is when you're much more aware of your reaction. Initially, you just kind of want to note down, what did you react to? What made you kind of react during the day? What made you, even just a comment, a thought about someone? What kind of thought did you generate throughout the day? What thoughts had you reacting and going to depression? What events? If you can't pick up the thought, just write down what event led to that, at what time. Because whatever detail, as many details as you can add to remember that moment. Because that's how you start being much more mindful of yourself and how you react or why you react. Okay? And that is key, because you're then able to spot what kind of situations or settings or thoughts or ideas or a combination of all of them leads you to that state of depression, because it is a state. It is not a permanent thing. And this is why you also have to be careful of your language. Not really going to dive into quantum physics or psychology because it would take a tad bit of time, but let's just go surface level. Whenever you say you are something, your brain will take it as a command and just boot that window around that setting. So your brain will register it as a command and will say, okay, well, I'm definitely depressed. So it's tricky because our language has led us to having those terms of expressions. And, it's kind of common of people going, I am depressed, I am this, I am that, I am a career, and spoke about what that does in more extent in prior video. But you don't want to fall into those terms of events because you are not defined by a temporary state. That's the funky part of it. It's like a lot of people say, I am depressed, so you got to watch out. And it's like, okay, but that's a state. If you're joyous, why are you not saying you're joyous? Instead, because the state will change. You're not depressed all the time. And saying it, putting the command in your brain just reaffirms it and loops it. So you're doing it onto yourself by accident without knowing. And of course, the same goes for everyone repeating this kind of dialogue, because nobody would consciously choose to shoot themselves in the foot like that. It's just an unconscious behavior repeated by the environment that we're in and, television that we're in, that we watch, or social media or media in general, as said in previous videos, those materials are in lag time. The habits and behaviors are old and they're passe. They're out of date because they don't necessarily acknowledge what it does to the human psyche. And of course, it's entertainment. But that is a critical note to take of. Do not remain binge watching entertainment. Do not remain stuck into entertainment. Because on two sides, one, you're taking that language, that old language that's, again, not balanced out for actual human living. It's snap dialogue written for entertainment. Yet solutions and resolutions in TV media is slow as fuck compared to what you, I, and everyone human are able to do when you understand your inner world and you practice that shit. So you don't want to repeat that dialogue by binge watching. And two, as you watch television or your attention is on any kind of screen, your level of mindfulness and awareness remains at that base and even more lesser than base in a way, because you're not actively practicing it. Your attention's on television. So what's improving in a sense is your recognition of various patterns in media, various feelings towards media, various associations towards media. Like one little habit that has been taking people as a storm over the last century is this aspect of feeling connected to a character in a TV show. Now, it's not saying that this is bad. Again, we play with non-duality here, so we're bringing this shit next level. And if you're taking on depression, this is your best friend. Non-duality. Everything is and isn't. So when it comes to television, it's not saying that television is bad. It's that we kind of have to balance this habit of watching because of the behaviors that it programs in people. Programming, in a sense, is basically a repetition of a word, a behavior, an attitude, a stereotype, okay? This literally just goes into your subconscious easily and effortlessly. The funniest part is, most of the time, if you watch things while being a tad bit tired and, at night, then it easily enters your subconscious mind because you're much more, I forgot the term, it's not vulnerable, you're much more open to suggestions at night and even early in the morning to a certain degree, which is why a lot of people say meditate during those times, because those are times where you can be much more mindful and aware of your internal world and change that shit. Yet, when it comes to television, you don't blame the TV, you don't blame the actors, you don't blame the media, you don't blame any of it. You balance it. Again, it's an unfortunate cycle of it's an unfortunate cycle of this cyclical behavior of like getting an invention, going wild with it, but then balancing it out. And funny enough, back in the past, our parents kind of knew, some of them, but they weren't able to explain it. So they were kind of like radical leftists. Oh, we know that this is a problem, but we don't necessarily know how to explain it. And that doesn't jive. It's unbalanced. It's kind of like radical vegans. They'll insult you for just eating meat, but at that same time, you are not understanding the digestion process and the help that digesting vegetable does. You don't put it as an identity. The same goes with your depression. Never, ever, 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 ever put your depression as an identity. Which is why that language, strip it out. You do not say, I am depressed. I am this, I am that. Because you then re-imprint this in your subconscious. Just like television, which is the exact same way this dialogue came into your language. If it wasn't for the environment, if it wasn't for the media repetition, you would have never had that dialogue or even those habits of perception that would get you depressed. Okay? So we're in a balancing game, and that's one heck of it. Because right now, I totally understand. With depression, it feels like a storm. It feels like it's constantly just jabbing at you from time to time and then taking you on a roller coaster of just falls and then highs up, depending on how you take care of it. Yet now it's time for you to take hold of your inner world. Most of the time, a lot of people were telling you, oh, the doctors are going to fix this, the government are going to fix this is going to be. But over and over and over, it imprints this aspect that this is everyone else's problem, but there's nothing that you can do. Your personal power and your personal awareness and mindfulness level is never taken into consideration with that kind of mindset. What does it create? A bunch of people pinging back and forth onto each other, yet never necessarily stabilizing within or taking that initiative or even being suggested or, fully enthusiastically suggested to do it, and supported to do that. No, it's like, oh, it's much easier to give you pills, right? Just like the ADHD, which is going to be another talk. Because, let's break those shit down, right? So, understanding this, okay, and you begin with that exercise of just noting down when you react, how, what brought it to that, what were the things that led you to that, and you commit to it, because you got to hold yourself and say, I want to get, I am down. And this should have been the first thing I said in this video, asking you to do this. Do you want to take care of your depression? Do you want to get rid of it? And this is one of those moments where if you're being asked this question next to another person, make sure the other person doesn't even let you stumble upon the words and response you're going to bring. It's like, do you want to take care of it? You must. This is the one must I'll tell you. You must take the decision and literally say, I want to take care of this. I am going to take care of this. And by doing so, you can already assume that, hey, it's GG, it's done. Because you've actively said, you've taken control. You've inputted a command instead of saying, I am depressed. No, I am actively taking care of this. I am actively willing to take care of this. I want the shit out. Okay, that's strong language, but you want to take it out. Okay? You don't make it a need, but you make it a standing commitment, because you're not going to, say, oh, well, wishy-washy of it. Fuck it. This is your mind. This is your inner world. You want to take that shit back. And you want to make it the best partner, best environment that you have within yourself. Okay? And it ain't cheesy shit. I have noticed that some of the programs in the 90s and even early 2000s started blasting, personal wellness programs and all that. Media influence fucks with you. It's like how nowadays being jaded is cool, but if somebody's happy in the street, oh my god, this person's weird. Really? 2020, we've gone to that point? Fuck that. Especially once you understand the consequences of continuously repeating depression. Actually, wait, let's dive into that. Not to scare you, but just if you continuously run your life with depression, anxiety, anger, fury, science literally proves it. You fuck with your inner cells. You fuck with your cells. They break down. You kill your pH level. Your cells break down. And guess what? You literally open your door to illness. Now, here's the thing. Maybe this is another practice that can help. This is a tricky one, because yes, you've gone, with the first practice, you've gotten more aware of the times, the things that lead you into reacting with depression, and you got much more aware about the timing of it. If there's repeated pattern, like if you continue listing for a couple of days, if there's repeating patterns, and you're able to spot this. Now, the next part with this is basically bringing down the why, okay? And this is where mindfulness brings you into looking a bit into psychology, as well as meditation, but also quantum physics. All of this surface level. You don't need to get yourself a PhD. That's overrated to a certain degree. Only if you want. But when it comes to these things, you don't need yourself a PhD. You can learn these surface level and practice, experiment, and then share information, okay? So After that point, to detach from those reactions, okay, after spotting the trigger, you will start to interface. You can do it two ways, but you can start interfacing with your own inner voice, your inner world, and asking, when was the first time that this pattern started? This brings you, and again, you got to hold yourself. Remember that commitment that you wanted to get rid of it, right? That you were dedicated to do so. Because this is where you literally bring yourself into the eye of the storm. When did that pattern first begin and why? And through that, you bring yourself to the time and place. Just close your eyes and do it. You bring yourself to the time and place where that first pattern started, and you fully go into what the meaning is at the time, remembering that you are visualizing or bringing a memory from a previous time of consciousness. So it's like saying from a previous time of where you didn't learn as much as you learned, or you didn't have as many experience, repeating the pattern as currently now, okay? But you're seeing it from now's point of view. So what you're doing at this point is looking at that memory, but not getting sucked into the emotion. You're looking at it just going, okay, that's what happened. That's what first started there. And the trick to it is when you ask that question, when's the first time that this happened? You want to pay more attention to your heart. You're going to search with your brain, okay? You're going to search your memory with your brain, but you're going to pay more attention to your heart's reaction because it'll track down the exact feeling repetition, the start of that feeling. You kind of get a beat on that feeling from the recent event that you noted down, and then you retrace it to the first time, okay? And again, hold that commitment, hold it, because you're going in the eye of the storm, but you're not getting yourself trapped into reacting to that initial start. You're not getting yourself reacting to it, okay? You're not falling for the TV habit of reacting to an emotion that you're perceiving at the moment, okay? Again, TV habit. Before TV or cinema was there, humankind didn't even have that perpetual reaction to that exterior. Okay? There was radio, there was newspaper, but it wasn't as, how do you say, it wasn't as pushed as now because everyone has a TV now, and plus you have the aspect of Netflix which blasts these habits to you. So fully understand that habit and behavior was never meant to be as unbalanced as it is in human history now, okay? Because it's all TV repetition. You're not necessarily supposed to be fully associated with an exterior emotion that you are not living in the moment, especially when it comes to TV or news, because you have no idea of the context that led to the mood, that led to the feel, that led to the thought, that led to the mood, that led to the action, that led to the result, and then the loop continues. Right here, as you're doing this visualization, you're going back to your own context of what happened. What's the first time this happened? And here's the big key, okay? As you're holding firm, what is the meaning that was given at that point? And this is key, because once you spot the meaning that your younger mind has given, because of whatever the society and environment has said, or whatever influences in media has brought to it one's awareness, and given that meaning, you can now understand that this was a meaning that was given then, but is no longer fucking valid now. You no longer need to be associated to that meaning at all. And hey, if you want to go even further, and this is why you go with the threesome of quantum physics, meditation, and psychology, you can even go up to a point where you no longer need to be attached to that memory and that method of seeing things, because you understand the granularity of your experience, meaning Your unique experience, your living experience, is so granular and rich in detail that can no one else will know. And then two, well, no one else will know in the aspect that they'll never be in your eyes. No one is going to know who you tweeted in the toilet, nor will see it from your perspective and point of view. So you can acknowledge that no one's in your head aside from you. Okay, the granularity and detail of what's going on in your inner world and your entire personal world is unique to you. So whoever's opinion that's being projected at that time, if that was the case, never mattered. Never mattered. They'll never know what's truly going on inside you. You're the only one, and that goes for everyone. It's just been very, how do you say, it's never really been considered because, well, yes and no. Okay, everything is and isn't. But it's mostly because the old-timing parenting did not consider that. So when they would scold you for doing something as a kid that they deemed wrong, they never understood that what they deemed wrong was only deemed so from their perception and perspective and years of experience, their granular experience. So it creates this effect of, oh, as a kid, I expect you to know that. But that's like expecting a kid to be psychic. You can't. That's why when it comes to, trauma stories and various other little behaviors similar to that, it all kind of, or a lot of it stems from this aspect that you were expected to do something from someone else's perception, which you could never figure out because you're not inside them. That whole logic did not make sense. And if it was instilled in a harsh way, then it causes even more problems in the long run. So upon understanding that, you can kind of detach from it. And the other aspect of things from that your granularity of experience, and another big key to remember, is any of those little experiences may change and your whole timeline changes. You might not even be looking at this. If you had a different kind of computer that could play games, you might be into games. Let's say you had a different best friends that introduced you to a different movie that inspired you to take on a different career or a different passion. Hey, maybe you went to a different high school, so you had a completely different best friend. Or, hey, maybe instead of going to a specific restaurant on your birthday, you went to another one that gave you a different kind of favorite food, which's path is completely different from the other one, It gets to that point, if you're able to perceive and understand that, how the fine granularity of your experience could have changed. Any little detail could have changed. You could have took a different turn one day in your life. You could have turned on a different street instead of taking the same pattern. And you would have landed on something that would have inspired you and got you to go in a different direction. It's that granular, okay? And plus the fact that all of that is your brain, in a way, meaning that as a kid, once you were born on this earth from 0 to 2, or up until you learned your name, you weren't any of that information, any of that granularity, right? When you look at a baby, just fully happy, creating, discovering, having fun, going around, playing with things, just being in this complete state. You know why? There's no separation in the brain. There's no good, bad, right, wrong. There's no classification that usually slows people down. And this is where you kind of want to balance your states. Understanding that in that state, that's your original state. That's the soul. I mean, hell, you want to go in spirituality or add that notch of spirituality to it, that's your fucking soul. Your main unit is the soul. You own a mind and a body. You're not those. Your main unit is the soul. You own this. Why? It was filled up as you stayed on this plane. But if you recall how you got to this plane, your state when you got to this plane, pure openness, love, joy, And yes, as a baby cries because he doesn't necessarily understand what's going on. So when you shit yourself, yes, you cry because you're like, what's going on? What's that? That's a natural reaction when you don't know how to handle unknowns. But further and later you knew how to handle unknowns, they became knowns. And that's how, your mind kind of gets filled up. But again, this is granular as fuck. Meaning, you could have been in any other country and the granularity of it would be completely different. Different best friend, different experience, different passions as well. So you don't need to stay attached to it, but at the same time you can balance that in your current state. Meaning, and I always give this tip, go to the extreme. You're not your name, you're not your skin color, you're not your body, you're not your possession, you're not your profession, you're not your skills, you're not all that. You're not even your reactions, you're not even your words. You just take that out. Look at that extreme and look at everything around. And if you spot your mind trying to say, this is a pillow, this is a desk, this is a bed. No. Go to the extreme. Cut that dialogue out. You have no words. You have no idea of what language is. Play with this, okay? And you start seeing, this is kind of fun. You're paying much more attention to various things. You enjoy, deepening your awareness on various elements. It becomes intrinsic. You kind of you would enjoy looking at the highlight that the sun creates on various things. You enjoy playing with shapes and form. And okay, start drawing. Don't even try to make a specific form or shape or whatever. Just start drawing. Go wild, loosely, real fast, have fun. And you see, you're just creating, you're perceiving, you're having fun, you're deepening your fun in there. Now, if right in that moment, as you're doing this drawing real fast, you ask yourself, okay, now I need to draw an apple. Then you're going to add a condition. And okay, this is part of the whole balance aspect. Then you're going to add a condition. And depending on if your mind is kind of trained to be anal or not, you're going to allow yourself to go with different forms for that apple, or just let yourself be creative. Or your mind's just going to be like, that's not an apple. That's not an apple. You're not doing it. It's not, no, you got to be careful. You start hearing the chatter again. And this is the difference between the two states. This is the difference you want to play around to understand and get a bit more into your mindfulness. Understanding differences of states and understanding that you could always go back to that original state. It doesn't mean that you're going to stay there nonstop and unbalanced, because you can't just go around, all right, I'm not my name, I'm not my body. Woo! You got to balance it. Society's not ready for this. Not yet. And of course, everything's about balance, so it's not leaving you in that state. But it's also understanding that that state is your normal state. And what happened is progressively throughout the years, and also whenever you're plucked into society, various rule sets are directly and indirectly imposed on you to fit with a mold. But the thing is, you never had to fit with a mold. There was never any mold. It was just a conceptual idea based on people that wanted safety and had the good intention, had really good intentions for you, yet did not understand the basics of human working. The aspect of the mind, mindfulness, what awareness to the five senses or even sixth sense with intuition is. They did not know. So they gave us a basic blueprint pattern. And also, we can't really say basic. At the same time, it's also an unfortunate consequence. Well, a natural consequence of our evolution, meaning what was learned then has led to more questions, which had us evolving more theory, combining multiple philosophies together, and then just finding solutions. So there's also the aspect that you don't know what you don't know, and they don't know what they don't know at any point in time that you do not know. The universal rule. Which is why if your depression is about someone else's criticism or you criticizing yourself, use that one and done golden gun bullet. You don't know what you don't know at any point in time that you do not know. You can't expect yourself to know something that you do not know at any point in time which you do not know. There is no word or verb should have, because it makes no sense. It is also another flawed aspect of our language. Should have intends that you can go back in time and say, oh yeah, should have done that. But you're seeing it from the post point in consciousness, meaning you wouldn't be saying that if what had happened did not happen. also another way to say it, you would not have the experience to say this is better if you would have not had that prior experience. That prior experience literally led you to creating your next level, to seeing what is better, to seeing what you would prefer. So you can't say should have. It makes no sense, you know? It's like, well, are you trying to wipe yourself out in the timeline and basically never get that lesson? Because you wouldn't have had that lesson if you didn't, do that moment, if that moment never happened. You wouldn't have had the understanding or recognition to say, oh, well, I prefer something else. This has happened, but I prefer something else. So there's no should have, okay? There's no expectation of another person or yourself as well. Because you don't know what you don't know at any point in time. And also someone else cannot infringe, or actually better word would be, someone else cannot label you or put onto you their expectation, because that comes from their granularity of experience. That would just be madness. It's like, I'm expecting you to read my mind. And there's this, there's this fucked up little habit in, I call it fucked up, mostly because it's kind of funny, but it's a fucked up little habit that happens in society where people are trying to guess what other people are doing, or they're literally affirming what other people should be doing, or what they're doing, or what their intention is. And get rid of that shit. That's television again. You're not. I've encountered this person really recently, and it's been an interesting experience because I've remembered how I used to do it back in high school and even college while I was in those kind of environments. This aspect of, a person that has a neighbor that does certain things or noise, but then this person literally says, this neighbor's doing it for me. This person, he's the devil. He's doing it literally to piss me off. And you're like, how do you know? This person doesn't even fucking know you. This habit of guessing what the other person has in mind, of putting, and I say guessing, at the same time it's indirectly when you don't necessarily pay attention to it, but when you do, it's indirectly putting or forcing one's perception of one's intention onto another. So it's like one person saying, okay, well, those are definitely your intentions. And it's like, how do you know my intentions? You read minds? Oh, wait. Going with television perception or stereotypes. And, of course, that's wrong. It's like, sorry. Well, it isn't, is it? Again, non-duality whooping my butt on this one. When you don't know what you don't know, then you just don't know. So I can't say that that's wrong. Certain people are stuck in those patterns, and they just don't know. So I can't call them wrong. The whole call-out aspect, or the call-out movement that happened a couple of whiles, it's like, no, that's just doesn't work. That's putting intentions on other. I would have been placing intentions on people doing that, if I did that. Do you understand how this works? So various little habits like that, lead to these storms of thought. It's as if it puts, if you see your brain as a computer, play around with that visualization. Those behaviors and habits are like putting automatic chain processes, saying, if person X act like this, then I react like this. But then reacting like this also has me reacting internally and thinking internally like that, which leads me to a path that I don't necessarily like, And all of that is not necessarily being mindful of your inner reaction. It's having little awareness of how you think and feel. And the thing is, those are your fucking ultimate tools, literally. If you're able to understand and be a bit more present with your awareness, with your, be a bit more mindful of your awareness and how you think and feel, the reaction from your brain to your heart and that back and forth, okay? Then at one point you begin to set up your patterns because you understand you don't need to remain attached to these. Again, granularity of it could have changed at any point. So why do you stay honed into on it? Right, the brainwashing of identity talk. That's another effect on the media, but when you understand that the identity, the whole hard drive, how it was built up from your environment and all of that, blah, blah, blah. You've heard what I said, okay? When you understand that you're not that, then you're not trapped in the identity trap of saying, I am this, I am that, and I am not moving away from this, because if I am this, my opposition is there, and my opposition is wrong. You know? Like, there's these little habits and loop patterns that happens if you stuck to an aspect of identity. And, you know, back in media, especially back in my day, it was fight for your identity, fight for what's right, fight, fight, fight. You know, stay hardcore and encode in your identity. And that's like shooting yourself in the foot. They had good intentions. Of course, it's all an aspect of balance, okay? And it's this aspect of be yourself, okay? If I were to re-envision that message and balance it for now, because, again, we've learned from the unbalancement and now we can balance. Be yourself at the fullest that you love, okay? So you don't let anyone's criticism or mentions or finger pointing even bother you, because you understand it's from their perception, which is the granularity of their experience. So in a sense, as jokingly as you can be, you can say, well, if a person has a lot of shit in their hard drive, then that's what they'll perceive. You know, that's their hard drive is the filter. So if they have a lot of shit on it, that's what they'll perceive. And a lot of people are influenced by shows, reality TV shows, and various shows that just puts a lot of shit in the hard drive, you know, when watching it on repeated base. So you kind of just don't care. But you also understand the turmoil that the person is stuck in. Because whatever they're pushing out to you, let's say in a negative way, they're pushing it within. Which also has you watching out for your own dialogue and what you say about other people. Because all of that is in your inner world and will actively come back to you in your own thoughts and dialogue. Your inner thoughts and dialogue. So if you're used to judging other people, criticizing other people, or even saying, oh my god, this person's the worst and blah blah blah, doesn't matter who it is. This is where we get into a bit of religion. Doesn't matter, or philosophy, it kind of goes, but it also touches quantum. It really doesn't matter who it is. You're actually going to use it against yourself at any point in time where you're not mindful of your inner dialogue. And also, we're not going to go into karma yet, but karma does have a loop back in there. So, that's a lot. I know. Well, not really. It's not a lot. I mean, you're able to tackle this on you'll do your experiments. You'll play with the exercises. Again, taking lists, going back to the beginning of it all, when the habit, the perception began, when the feeling first started, fully letting yourself go in it, but not letting yourself getting taken by it, right? Balance. And then just detaching from it and going into what you prefer. So, again, I'm going back to this aspect of fully be yourself. Be what you want. Ignore those outside comments, but balance it in an aspect where you will not act and behave onto another the way you wouldn't want someone else to behave onto you. Meaning, you act in a way that you would want someone else to act towards you. Same goes with your thoughts. Because karma is literal. It doesn't care. That's why play this like an exercise. Take notes, but don't hammer yourself in. As you take notes and become much more aware of your reactions and your perception, you're able to tweak this to your liking, to your preferences. And you are the only one that will know the depth and granularity of your preferences. I can't help you on that because you're the only one that knows. So use that at your advantage. Play with that. Spend more times focusing on what you love, what you prefer. You know, another exercise, and you could even just go hardcore on this, with a certain amount of balance, but it's having a media diet of just comedy. Just comedy. You know, comedy shows, skits, stand-up comedy, various other things. Going to local stand-ups as well. Have that diet for a whole week or two and see how you change. Because you're implanting, you're adding and recording patterns of laughter. So you're being much more joyful. You do have to watch out for some of the insinuation and some of the perceptions there. but at least you're not going. At least you're not binging a show like Game of Thrones, which would have you associated with a character, which then gets snuffed off a couple of episodes after another season. So you get this weird little polarizing thing of feeling yourself into a character, and then out of nowhere, oh, you're gone, oh, you're gone, and that leaves a shit feeling, you know. And that's binge watching. It's not saying that the show is garbage, but it's this balance of you don't necessarily want to binge watch that kind of repetition in your subconscious, because you intake the mood of whatever you ingest, and you choose whether you keep it or you don't. But that's only when you do it consciously. So again, you're not at fault. No one is. It's all this game of balance where we didn't necessarily know what technology would do to the mind because we didn't fully understand how the mind worked. But now it's a big ass co-op game with everyone on the planet, except a couple of few fuckers that want to shake things up and just pull power. But ignore them, because it's inevitability. Everyone's understanding, growing and more of an understanding of this, and becoming much more into unity, which is why videos like this meant to help, you know, starting to have you ask questions or doing certain exercise, and also telling you, again, this is one, let's say, set of strategies out of multiple out there. So if this doesn't necessarily work for you, that's fine. You got certain tools and certain bunch of experience, and guess what? Now you know what you would prefer. Because if this didn't necessarily work for you, okay, why? Ask yourself. Don't tell me. Ask yourself. And then ask yourself what you would prefer, or how you would feel if it worked, or if something else would work for you. So you get more nuanced in your questions because you're seeking an answer. And this is why I ask you to take that commitment vow. You're going to seek answers because you want to work it out. But you don't go at it with an aspect of, I need, and saying, oh, I'm a failure if I didn't do that. No, that's old method of thinking. Never worked. Well, okay, it works for some people, but it's not the most optimal way that you want to tackle these things on. Especially if you're already in the deep marshes that people tell me of depression. So those are some of the tools that could help. Going to the extreme of just not being your mind, going back to that initial state is a good one, because if you could also just be in flow state. So do some craft, do some activities, but blitz it for two weeks straight. Okay, only doing that, and see how good you feel. You know, but also pay attention to that inner dialogue. This is key. If you are able to pay attention to that inner dialogue, understand that you are not it. You did not consciously choose what was in there, or you would have never chosen dialogue that would make you feel like shit. Okay, this is very important. You would have never chosen that. So it is not you. You are not associated to it. You are the soul. You own this, but you did not consciously select what went in there because you did not know that you could. But you totally can. The people that taught you otherwise did not know as well. Could be a synchronicity of information happening right now in the recent years that they never got. So they were never able to translate that to you. And you can also see how the majority of population sinks themselves in media in order to wash away the tears. But that propagation of habit forgets that you have an inner world, an inner garden that you kind of need to take care of. Or else you make unconscious choices which will just lead you to various aspects of depression and, you know, reaction instead of responding and going, how would I prefer to respond? How would I prefer another person to respond to me if I were in that position? How would I prefer another person to think about me? You know, and you don't go with the media thinking. Fuck that. You go with what you would prefer, okay? And that's possibly a big step, especially if you're in depression, man. You want to take care of it, right? You got to take care of that big step. What do you prefer? What do you like? What would be more fun? Ask yourself these questions. Practice yourself asking yourself these questions, because this becomes your new repetition. You're going to do just like TV and the media. You're going to repeat what you prefer, how you prefer to feel. You're not going to repeat the binge watching feeling of just feeling good and then bad and then good and then bad. Fuck that. You're going to practice how you prefer to feel, how you prefer to think, how you prefer to perceive people. Because, funny enough, even though people think that, oh, everyone kind of have a similar habits or similar ways of thinking because media says it so, it's wrong. Okay, is and isn't, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Again, the granularity of everyone's experience. When you fully understand that, and you understand that we all learn through different experiences, different granularity of experience, again, completely different experience. We don't all have the same best friends. We don't all have the same favorite food. We don't all went to the same high school. When you perceive the granularity of your own experience, then you'll understand that same thing for everyone else, and you don't live with that idea of expectation from everyone else. That includes notorious figures. You don't fall into the mediatic habit of labeling people like willy-nilly, because you understand that life is much more granular and personal. So whoever's little opinion on media, on the news, or on social media, it doesn't matter, because they'll never know what the other person, the celebrity, or whoever they're talking about, is actually living and feeling in the moment, and what led to that, the repetition of habits. This is the most crucial thing and helpful thing you can do for yourself, is understanding your own timeline in that way and how granular it is, and then playing around with alternate possibilities just out of joy and playfulness. But when you understand that, you no longer get suckered into this habit of perceiving what others are thinking or putting intentions onto others. And then guess what? Karma doesn't act that way towards you. You're much more lenient towards yourself. You don't expect and demand things from yourself in specific ways. You know it's loose. You know it's all over the place. You know it's fun. You no longer see it as chaos. You see it more as a space of infinite possibilities in a way, kind of like Joe Dispenza says, which is a great book that you want to check out, is You're the Placebo and Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza. Get the audiobook as well. Whatever works for you. Play with this. Get as much information as you can get from philosophies, religion to a certain degree, meditation and psychology, as well as quantum physics. Ooh, we went to 5. But get as much information as you can on surface level. Do not hold yourself in an aspect of strictness. Play, have fun, discover, see what correlations kind of work with you, and build your own exercises to create your own momentum. And then guess what? It won't take too long. You're going to look back at when you had depression, and you're just going to laugh and be like, okay, that was not holding control of my mind, but now I am. And you can always ask cheat code questions. If it gets tricky with you, ask cheat code questions. How would it feel if I had that utter control of my mind? How would it feel how does it feel when I'm not depressed? You know, when I'm fully joyful and enjoy. How does it feel when I'm in flow state, when I like doing my craft and my activities? You know, how does it feel when I can just look back at the past with of that depression and just kind of go, man, I'm glad it's gone. I'm actually glad it's gone. But hey, next level of that question, if you dare, because not forcing you to take it. This is like bonus level, bonus XP, okay? You would ask, what did I learn from having that depression? You know, and some of the answers, I can give you a little push, but you'll find your own if you take that bonus question, is I've learned how bad things can get when I don't control my mind. But now I've learned how great things are when I take full control and I'm fully aware and mindful of my state. You know, I've learned I can change state to my will when I know the techniques that work with me. I've learned that my inner connection, when I keep up to date with it, you know, when I keep up to date with it, when I keep up with it, my inner connection is much more personal. It's much more friendly. It's my best friend. Because, of course, you're the only one that'll know your inner world, to the degree that you know. You're the only one that'll know the granularity of it. So, exactly, those are some of the bonus questions. Sometimes you might feel something in your heart if you try to go there. And whenever you feel that heart throb, okay, there's a variation for thrill, but there's also a variation for separation of yourself. And it might be the whole aspect of separation. So maybe the logical mind might try to say, oh, you haven't been able to feel that. Oh, you're lying. Oh, this, oh, that. Ignore it. Just start repeating it. Don't force yourself. Make a couple of repetitions. Because, again, it's like you're trying, and you fully need to understand, you've been running this depression for an amount of time. So you've repeated this hard drive program for an amount of time. It is going to take time to loop it back on another sense. It's not going to take as much time because you're doing it consciously, but it will still take time. So don't let the mind with the social logic say that you need to have a change in the moment. You don't need it. It can happen, but you don't need to force yourself to do that change in a moment. It is a progression. It always is, and you should never have any pressure onto that. Again, balance, and you figure out your own balance, okay? But if you feel upon that bonus question, that little heart throb, push the question a tad bit more, or just bluntly say, yeah, okay, I'm glad that this event happened because now I'm able to control my mind more so. I took actual control of it, and I can lead it to thriving, because after that you can just play around and literally lead yourself to doing stuff that you just fucking love and adore, and have a much more pleasant experience because you're actually taking control. So again, you don't fall into the aspect of should have. You actually welcome the event that happened because it led you to seeking materials that'll lead you to having that total mindfulness of your own inner world. And then at that point, GG, game is won, let's go. Literally, it's all practice, but you gotta remember, you're literally fighting against prior behaviors of thinking, feeling, and even acting. So if you notice, you're going back to that binge watch, or you're going back to that distraction on social media and reacting to it, it's okay. It's a pattern that's been repeated multiple times. So just note it. Note it down and go, oh, I went there again. And you can, upon having a better relationship with your inner world, you can start asking questions like, okay, well, why did I go there? Why did I repeat this? Again, the mind might, if you feel that, okay, the mind might pop up some casual dialogue of, oh, it's because you're lazy. Oh, the TV dialogue, the snap dialogue, that kind of crap, all right? It might pop it up, and you'll feel it in your heart because you're feeling this connection. That's that soul-heart connection. That would go into deeper knowledge, but just take surface level of it. Yet, if that were to happen, toss it away. Whatever, just push, and play with this aspect of asking yourself deeper questions, but don't force. You have the entirety of that control. You do, okay? It's just that the current state and situation that you're in is from not knowing that control. And how can you know when you don't know? Be lenient with yourself and be lenient with the environment around you, because this wasn't known knowledge. It's because we're pooling in information now, man. We're playing co-op. So we're playing a massive world co-op right now. So join in and get those tools. Everyone's here to help you at the same time. It all depends on, are you going to take that commitment and say, I want to get rid of this, and I'm ready to look at multiple techniques and lenses to take care of it. And I can already see myself outside of that situation. That's, again, a little bonus. But if you manage to do it, you're rock and rolling, man. You're going for New Game Plus. Literally. So, if anything, if there's any questions, feel free to post them in the comments, and who knows, there could be a follow-up video, or you know, the extended aspect of this theory, it continuously evolved. This understanding, these various practices and lens. So who knows? Could be a follow up in the future, more things in the future. Somebody would have brought something up, a very important point, and there could be a whole video thinking of, talking about it. But yeah, at this point, go forth, take control, kick butts, have fun, and thrive. Okay, thrive, kick some asses. All right, and thanks again, man.